Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to IBMF's RedNet webinars. I hope you and your families are well and healthy. In partnership with the Hire Heroes USA, we are happy to bring you today our 7th Employer Spotlight session. Today with us on panel, we have employers from Patriot Advantage, Instant Teams, and Freedom Learning Group. My name is Elvis Avdic, and I'm Post-Program Support Service Advisor here at IBMF. Syracuse University's IBMF focuses on advancing the lives of the nation's military veterans and their families through programs in career, vocations, and entrepreneurship education and training. Myself, along with the rest of the IBMF Alumni Services team, assist graduates across our IBMF programs with resources and networking connections. That's why we have teamed up today with HHH USA to host an Employer Spotlight webinar on looking and preparing for remote jobs. Moderating our today's session is Ashley Owens. She's a talent sourcing specialist, recruiter, and corporate account manager for Hire Heroes USA. But before we get started, I just want to go over some ground rules. This session is being recorded, and anyone that has registered for this session will receive a recorded link and a survey. Please take the survey, let us know how we did and what other future webinars you would like to see from us. If you have any questions during the session, please type in the chat box. You can open your chat box at the bottom right by clicking on the purple arrow and clicking on the chat bubble. Or you can just raise your hand and we'll try to allow you access to camera and microphone so you can ask your questions. With that being said, I would like to pass over to our moderator, Ashley, to introduce herself and our guest panelists. Ashley, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for participating today and welcome to our event. My name is Ashley Owens. I am an employer relations specialist at Hire Heroes USA. I have worked in the veteran and military spouse employment space for the last 9 years, with the last 4 most recent years being at Hire Heroes USA, going on 5 years. I've worked in various roles. Currently, I work in a recruitment capacity, specifically with corporate partners who want to find, interview, and hire veterans, as well as military spouses and military members that are preparing to embark on that civilian path. Some of our amazing employers are with us today. I'm very excited to be able to speak with them and introduce them to you if you haven't heard about them before. I'm hopeful that you'll look them up online and find out a little bit more about the great work that they do and their passion for hiring veterans and military spouses. And they've done that several times with Hire Heroes USA and outside as well. I'm a military spouse. I also work remote. I've worked remotely for the last year. I worked telecommute before that for the last 3 years, and then I've worked in mobile remote roles as well. So I have a little bit of experience when it comes to some of the unique dynamics that comes into play when it comes to remote opportunities. And thank goodness, because I have been at Fort Drum, I have been at Fort Leonard Wood, I have been at Fort Carson, and some of those places are a little bit different than the others. Again, I do want to say thank you to all of you for your amazing service. And I always like to say thank you for your continued service, because I know that so many of you are continuing to do great things even after you separate the military. Without further ado, let's go ahead and welcome our guests today. We have Emily Humphrey. Emily Humphrey is the Director of Client Relations with Patriot Advantage. I've had the pleasure of working with her before, and I'm really excited to be able to delve into a little bit more of her experience moving forward today. We also have Erin Stoner. Erin is a remote workforce development specialist at Instant Teams. We have a long history with Instant Teams and have had a wonderful time working with them to help military spouses and veterans find amazing opportunities. And last but of course not least, we have Kristen Arkema, and she is the staffing director with Freedom Learning Group. Reading Learning Group, amongst our other employers today, have been in the spotlight with Hire Heroes USA for being a #1 employer because of their commitment to hiring veterans and military spouses. So thank you all for being here today. I am going to let you introduce yourselves because I don't want to forget any details about your excellent work or what your company does and how you can best articulate that. We will spend the next 15 to 20 minutes talking about our guests, our panelists' background, as well as their companies, and then delving into some of the topics specific to remote opportunities. If you do have any comments, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to either raise your hand, you can use the panel box, or you can of course add a comment, and we'll go ahead and address those at the very end of the meeting today. So let's go ahead and get started. Emily, welcome to the VetNet platform. Let's go ahead and get started with you.
Great, thank you so much, Ashley and Elvis. I'm thrilled to be here today. Before I jump into introducing myself a little further, I actually wanted to share some really exciting news. We actually just rebranded last week, so we are no longer Patriot Advantage, we're now VA USA. So that is a huge deal. I'm really excited to share that news. I think I'm the first one to kind of publicly say that out loud in person, so really exciting. A little bit about me. I am a proud Navy wife. I've been with my husband Nick for about 7 years. During that time, we've moved 3 times. We've been through 3 deployments, and we've had 3 kids. We are currently stationed in San Diego, California. Beautiful out here. We're enjoying the weather indoors, thanks COVID. I am the Director of Client Relations and Hospitality with VA USA, and I've been with the company a little over a year and absolutely love it. A little bit about VA USA. It's a virtual staffing company and veteran-owned small business. We specialize in hiring military spouses as virtual assistants for small business owners, nonprofits, and many other professionals.
Perfect. Thank you, Emily. Erin, let's hear from you next. And I think we might need to add your microphone on, if you don't mind.
There you go. We're good to go. So long as you can hear me now. I just want to say quickly thank you to HHUSA and then obviously as well IVMF for introducing or allowing us to speak today. About instant teams and remote work opportunities, because we always like to say that we're paving the future of remote work, and it's kind of here and it's now. So we're still adjusting and going with each day. But my name is Erin Stoner. I am a military spouse, but military life has just been something I've been used to my whole life. My father was in the Navy for 28 years. I've been married to my spouse, who's an active duty Army service member, 7 of his 13-year career. So I'm a little more nervous of what comes after this life, and so what makes this discussion today just a little more real for me, and a little more kind of a personal side for me too. I've been with Instant Teams for about a year now. I started off into their actual matching and interviewing of positions and have grown with them since into a workforce role where I get to be kind of the verbal handshake of our company and in welcoming new people as they create profiles and search for work with us. We use technology and our military connected workforce to get everybody connected to remote opportunities to really just kind of live this lifestyle that demands innovation, communication, and flexibility.
Perfect. Thank you, Erin. And of course, Kristen, let's hear a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I am the staffing director of Freedom Learning Group. I am also a military spouse. My husband actually has just hit 20 years of service. I don't see him getting out of the Air Force anytime soon. He is a pilot and he likes his life. I have been married to him for a little over 15 years. We have my 13-year-old son has lived in 9 different houses, so we're no strangers to the mobile lifestyle. And I have been working remotely for about 12 years, so I have some experience teaching remotely, and then I've been working for Freedom Learning Group for about 3 years. Freedom Learning Group is definitely where my passion is. We were founded by a military couple, so we're owned by a veteran and military spouse, and we have hired over 250 military spouses and veterans to work on educational content development projects. So we have a lot of remote opportunities. We are 100% virtual, and it's super exciting to be able to share the word, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
Amazing. Thank you all, and for all that you do for the veteran and military spouse community. It definitely means a lot. I know that we've referenced Hire Heroes USA a few times. I assume that some of you may be familiar, but we are also a veteran and military spouse nonprofit. All of the services are completely free for veterans and military spouses. So if you're looking for assistance with employment, we can connect you with some of these amazing employers today and help you out with your resume as well. So let's go ahead and get started, because we want you to have that support. We want you to have that background when it comes to remote opportunities that are growing so rapidly, somewhat due to the pandemic and so due to simply the environment and the landscape of recruitment and how it's been impacted by virtual hiring as well as permanent remote opportunities. So let's go ahead and start and discuss somewhat of the elephant in the room, COVID-19. So as COVID-19 evolves, where does your company stand with hiring, and how can veterans and military spouses continue to pursue employment during a pandemic? Let's go ahead and start with Emily.
Thank you. Yes, we have been very fortunate and have not had to slow down our hiring process at all. We were thankful to already have been working 100% remotely, so there was no real learning curve there for us. If anything, seeing the way a lot of jobs have started transitioning to work from home positions during the pandemic has given us more of an opportunity to reach out and offer our services, tools, and resources. As far as job searching, I'm going to do a major shout out here. In my personal experience, I actually heard about this in a webinar that Hire Heroes. So they're always resources definitely and we also connect them with the active duty spouse program through American Corporate.
Hey, Emily, we're hearing a little bit of audio. We're getting a couple comments pertaining to, it sounds a little bit muffled.
Yeah, is that better?
Perfect. You're perfect.
Okay, sorry. I was just saying that we also connect them with the active duty spouse program through American Corporate Partners. So Hire Heroes and ACP are both really, really great resources that we use.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, thank you. And I do agree. It's so helpful to know about all of the different resources and how you can use them differently as you're navigating through that process. Great. So let's go ahead and hear from Erin in terms of how your company is standing in terms of hiring amidst COVID.
Definitely. We're kind of like VA USA now, and that is we've been so fortunate that we can just keep kind of almost business as usual. So we're still actively hiring, and we're putting still our military connected workforce at the forefront of what we do each day. So we highly encourage anybody that is looking into remote work opportunities with us and want to be competitive for our positions. And that's started by creating a profile with us. We also have a exclusive remote Facebook group, and that's where people get to see kind of our opportunities as we build them each week. So if you get invited into that, you get to self-express interest. And we're also hosting, it's a new thing that we started, and that's job parties on Fridays on our main Facebook page. So it's kind of fun because we get to really kind of highlight all the opportunities we're building that week. And then we also provide you a way to, one, obviously create a profile because that's how you get matched, but then also express interest. So we definitely welcome you guys to join us every Friday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern and just stay connected with us on social.
Absolutely. I think that's so meaningful because there are a lot of social avenues that are really those conduits to really keeping informed within these communities when it comes to remote opportunities. We did have a comment about whether LinkedIn is utilized as well as some of the typical social media, so Facebook and Instagram and so forth. And I have seen some groups, and I think it's important to stay connected connected. Do you all have groups that you would feel comfortable adding in that comment box when you have a moment? If so, I'll go ahead and I'll let you add those if you do have any groups, or of course, if you have specific LinkedIn pages as well. We should have them, Elvis, correct me if I'm wrong, but on the event overall, the information for the event. But if not, let's go ahead and add them in that comment box. I also saw that, unfortunately, Emily, most of what you were saying was cut out, and I'm so sorry. But I want to give you the opportunity to speak a little bit more about VA USA and some of the amazing things that you were doing. Is it too much to ask for you to re-explain that?
Not a problem. I'm sorry about the issues there. Can you guys hear me okay now? All right. Well, yeah, we were just saying, or I was just saying, we have been very fortunate to also not have to hire or slower our hiring process. We were already working 100% remotely, so we didn't really have a learning curve with any of that. If anything, it allowed us to share more of our resources with people who were transitioning to work from home positions during this pandemic. And then I was just shouting out Hire Heroes as a great resources for military spouses and veterans looking for career opportunities, as well as American corporate partners.
Wonderful. Thank you for doing that. And of course, Kristen.
Yes, so we very similarly, because we're 100% virtual, we really haven't slowed down at all with hiring. In fact, I would say I'm busier than I've ever been. Obviously, a lot of people are looking for remote work opportunities. The project work that we have is it spans a huge range. So we're always looking for subject matter experts in different areas, and we keep our company website updated on our careers page with the different project opportunities that become available. It's changing, so if you're interested in project work with Freedom Learning Group, I absolutely recommend continuing to watch that page. We do also have social media presence both on Facebook and LinkedIn. Anybody who has any interest in connecting with me on LinkedIn, please feel free to do that. But Freedom Learning Group has independent pages as well. We do try to kind of keep those updated with the opportunities that we have too. I would say honestly, COVID has been there are obviously so many negatives. I'm in Arizona at Luke Air Force Base, and we are experiencing an increasing and kind of wondering if the kids are going to go back to school ever. But right now, in some ways, for people who are looking for remote opportunities, there's kind of no time like the present, because everybody's kind of having to learn how to do this. So I would, highly recommend connecting with agencies like Hire Heroes and try to form those partnerships. Obviously, Instant Teams is great. There are a lot of places that you can get that kind of assistance, and we're always looking for people for our projects too. So I'm definitely always wanting to hear from people if anybody has interest in knowing more about us.
Wonderful. And it is becoming a bit easier to find some of those remote opportunities if you're looking at LinkedIn, or if you're looking at really any type of a job board. I know ours has an option now for remote opportunities, whereas historically it was a bit more difficult to find out about those opportunities. Now you will see them a bit more prominently. And I speak with employers every single day as part of my role, and we are seeing a significant trend moving over to that virtual workforce, because you don't know what's going to happen next. 2020 has been a very interesting year. We've learned a lot of lessons so far, and so you will see many employers that are moving over to those solely virtual interviews, moving over to remote opportunities if and when possible, to keep everyone safe, to mitigate costs, and to prepare for who knows what's going to happen next. So I think that's really great advice in terms of looking into some of these platforms and simply staying aware, staying connected. That's so very important, particularly if you are looking for remote opportunities, being connected within some of those platforms. And I know that not everyone uses Facebook, not everyone uses some of those social platforms. However, that is becoming somewhat of a trend, and it can be helpful, but somewhat of a necessary evil, if that makes sense. It's very important to be mindful about what platforms you're going to use to find out about these opportunities and stay connected. So I know that so many of you have hired, I mean, we're talking hundreds of veterans and military spouses collectively, and that's so amazing that you've been able to do that. What are some of the benefits of hiring veterans and military spouses, specifically in remote atmospheres? So what are some of the skills that they have that they could capitalize on?
That is an excellent question. And since hiring military spouses, like you said, is one of our company uniques, I love answering it. Military families in general are incredibly resilient. They can have so many obstacles thrown in their way repeatedly again and again. They show amazing strength and perseverance during times of chaos and constant life changes like deployments, PCS moves. And with all those events comes immense adaptability. One of the most consistent pieces of feedback we receive from brand new virtual assistants that join our team is that they feel very overwhelmed the first few weeks. They're learning a new business, new processes, new platforms, and that can be very stressful. But what we continually see is that they thrive in these overwhelming, stressful situations. They come together as a team, I would even say as a family, and support one another in a way that is just incredible to be a part of. So I think that's great. Let's see. I guess the other thing I would say is that there's also a lot of passion that comes with finding a job that you can actually stay with long term. You know, there's an unfortunate reality that when you are a military spouse, you're changing careers every 2 or 3 years with a PCS move. So finding that job that you can grow with is refreshing and energizing, and that excitement just shows tenfold in their work.
Perfect. No, I think that's amazing to hear. And absolutely, we've seen that time and time again with all of our veterans and military spouses. The level of enthusiasm and the high quality of work that they bring is really, it can't be compared. There are lots of soft skills as well as hard skills that I think that we're going to delve into a little bit as well. When you're working in that virtual capacity, it can be difficult to connect with clients, with coworkers, with prospective clients, because you don't have the face-to-face like you normally would. And so the personality does need to be something that is considered, and how you communicate and interact with other members, I think, is so very valuable. And that's something that veterans as well as military spouses have had to learn time and time when they pick up and they move to different places, some more rural and some more populated. So definitely great points. Okay, Erin, I'd love to hear from you too.
Absolutely. So just kind of like piggyback off that, and then what you also said is we're moving frequently, we're changing different positions and learning new skills, but then even just within our life, we're learning so many different skills, from the PCSing and managing the budgets, or military, of course, you plan, but then the military has another plan for you, and then even that can change. So I kind of already hinted on it in my introduction, and that's we really do at Instant Teams recognize that our military connected community brings innovation, communication, and flexibility, and just really their heart and soul and part of their lifestyle. And so that we know anytime we're working with somebody from our military connected workforce, that's what we're going to get, and that's what our customer is also going to get. And that's why we've really put hiring our military and their families at a preference and at the heart of what we do.
Great, great. And Kristen?
Gotta unmute. We already heard the R word, resilient. That is, I think that's a hallmark, obviously, of both veterans and military spouses, dependents. We all have been kind of through the ropes with moving. And one of the things that I like to focus on, I am in the fortunate position to be able to screen. I read every single resume that somebody sends to Freedom Learning Group, and if we are hiring somebody, I am the person that talks to that person, for the first time. So I get a chance to talk to everybody that we bring in. And one of the things, the resiliency is a big thing. Obviously, flexibility was mentioned as well. I like to think of veterans and military spouses as kind of the ultimate project managers. What are you doing every single time you move to a new duty station? You are reinventing yourself. You're also finding, a new dentist and a new doctor, pediatricians. You've got to find, housing. You have all of these pieces to put together. That is a skill set that not everybody brings to the table. So that's one, I think, common theme that I see with military spouses and veterans alike, is that they have been through that. They know how to adapt to these different circumstances. I as I said, I look at a lot of resumes, and I think that people who are in transitional phases like military spouses so often can be concerned about is, hey, I've got these gaps. I've got these, it looks like I'm hopping around. It looks like I never stick with one thing. Well, as an employer that focuses on hiring within that community, of course, we see that often. And one of the things that I notice about military spouses in particular, also veterans, because they, are moving to new job locations and doing new roles. Military spouses often either move to a new duty station and they get a new job, or they do something new, professionally. Sometimes it's not quite within their wheelhouse, but they adapt. Or they pick up a new skill. Maybe they complete a certification. So I see in those resumes a really, really rich kind of group of skills for people. And with the type of work that we're doing, and the fact that we have these educational content development projects that are, it might be calculus, it might be computer programming, languages, business, it's a huge range. People that have all those different skill sets can really fit into a lot of different places for us. So definitely a huge benefit, and one of the things that I think is really a great thing about our military community.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's so very important to think about constantly developing oneself and reinventing oneself, because at this point, we don't necessarily hold one career or one type of role for the next 20 years. It's a very different landscape at this point. And I know that you had referenced gaining training or becoming certified. I know that the Onward to Opportunity program is an amazing program. I would assume that a lot of the audience members are already involved in terms of being able to sign up for that free PMP or CAPM or IT certification. But are there any specific trends that you see with your companies in terms of skill sets or certifications that speak volumes to you and the work that you do?
Well, like we've all been saying, military families are incredible, and military spouses possess so much potential and so many traits that can easily translate into skills and experience in a professional setting. Another thing we take into consideration is skills can be learned, but character and values cannot be taught. Continuously, we have found military spouses are underutilized and incredibly adaptable. We look to build on the skills they already possess while also aligning with our core values that are already so common in the military community.
Absolutely. And I speak with employers on a daily basis. And for a lot of the roles that are moving into that remote sector, many employers are saying the same thing. We can train. There are programs out there that candidates can become certified in, whether it is Amazon Web Services or whether it is the Microsoft MMSA program. There's so many options out there to gain some of those hard skills. But what a lot of these partners and employers are finding is that it can be difficult to find the right type of person and then build upon that. So I think it's very important to look at utilizing some of those skills that you have fundamentally and then adding on that as well to fully capitalize. And again, some of these programs are self-paced. Some of them you can take a little bit of time to work through. Even, for example, becoming a Salesforce administrator, there are VetForce courses that are available. And so there's so many resources out there. And again, these feed into a lot of the remote opportunities, whether you're going to move to more of a virtual assistant capacity, or if you're going to manage projects virtually, or maybe even move into the tech realm. It's something that is very strongly ingrained within our economy right now that we are moving towards. So I'd also love to hear from you, Erin. Are there any specific skill areas or any particular types of trainings that you find valuable that you would recommend?
Yes, so for Instant Teams, we focus on administrative marketing and then kind of a combination between tech and customer success. So those type of like kind of skills and areas are what we're always looking for. But then because we are 100% remote, just our internal team and then anybody that works with us as our remote team members too, is digital skills. So there's different tools out there that we use frequently, Slack, Trello, and becoming familiar with those, or just one in general. There's tons of free courses out there that you can kind of self teach yourself, but then also we've created a kind of a fun quiz recently. I don't know if anybody has caught it on social, and you get to take that quiz to see how digitally ready you are essentially. And then it kind of guides you on a journey if you need to upskill, or maybe you're already there and you're ready to join. And that you can always take that skill at instantteams.com/remote prep. So I highly encourage that. But just a combination of that, and then also on a personal side too, is just determination. And we often see that within especially our veteran population as they're coming out and transitioning. And we can see that and feel that when we communicate with our workforce. And so a combination between our technical and soft skills is just something that we're always looking for in our workforce.
Yeah, I think that's great. And like you said, some of the courses or some of the prep courses that are available are either free or they're very self-paced or short. So LinkedIn Learning, if you do have LinkedIn Premium, and many are eligible for LinkedIn Premium for free for 1 year. I know that due to COVID, they're doing some promos right now as well. But LinkedIn Learning, there are so many courses, and I've taken them personally. I normally take one a week. Sometimes they're 5 minutes long, sometimes they're 4 hours long. But being thrown into certain types of opportunities where perhaps I haven't written code before, but I need to learn how to write code because I'm trying to create a newsletter that's specific for the veteran and military spouse community or employers that are within that community. And so that's something that some of those courses can be very helpful with. So definitely look at some of those resources to continue to stay up to date with Microsoft products and communicating tools, like you were saying, Trello and Slack. Try out Amazon, some of their products when it comes to Amazon time, and figure out what's going to work for you and how to navigate those platforms. Again, you don't have to spend money in order to be able to gain some of that training, gain some of that experience. And Kristen, I'd love to hear from you specifically because Freedom Learning Group has certain opportunities. So is there anything that stands out to you in particular when it comes to when you're looking at a resume, specifically within certifications or traits that really are going to stand out?
We always, like everyone else, are looking for both the hard skills that are needed for the project and then the soft skills. That's, that first conversation that I get to have with people, I can kind of get a sense, but there's a lot that you can see in a resume too that conveys, hey, here's what I've done and here are the results that I've gotten. You can see who a go-getter is, and so those things, if you can communicate them on your resume, are great. Now, we have, I've mentioned the range of projects that we have. You can't have too many certifications. You can't have too many, you mentioned, I love the idea of taking a course every week. LinkedIn Learning is great, Coursera, there are all kinds of other opportunities. One thing that we look for a lot is the PMP certificate. We have project management needs. So that was, a great suggestion there. As you said, there's so many programs that are available to military spouses and to veterans that are free or very low cost and accessible. So I highly recommend, I guess the way I see it, we need people with IT certifications in a lot of cases. We need, people with higher level math skills. We're always in need. We need people who have business backgrounds, foreign language, but anything that you can show me, that says, hey, I completed this training and I know how to do this. Any skill that you bring to the table is super, super important and helpful. And one of the things that Erin mentioned, I think, was being digitally ready. That's just the nature of the beast now, is that with remote work, you do need to be ready to use, digital tools. You need to be able to use software. One of the things that I'm always interested in understanding about people is, do you have experience developing new technical skills? If you have to pick something up, are you okay with that? We do a lot of on-the-job training. All of our clients work a little bit differently. Every project looks a little bit different. There's a learning curve. So somebody who is maybe has some skills in their repository but is willing and able to pick up new ones, that's a huge benefit as well.
Great, great. And I think that's amazing advice. And if you all look in the control panel, I've seen a few more tools and tricks in terms of what people have used that has really been helpful and impactful for them. And so I would certainly recommend asking your network and finding out what's working for them. And I know that a few of our audience members have said, well, I don't know what I need to do first. Is the PMP that first step? Maybe not. You have to find out specifically what is going to work best for that particular type of role that you are aiming towards. Because I can tell you, if you're looking at becoming, let's say a CRM administrator, that is going to look different than if you're looking at becoming a virtual assistant or tech support or sales. And so I know that we've recommended this a few times, but look at these volunteer opportunities to find a mentor, whether it's American Corporate Partners or whether it's specific to your university or Hire Heroes USA, whatever program you feel is going to work best. And again, don't restrict yourself to one. Try to use several. I always say a good rule of thumb is 3. If I can speak with 3 different experts in the industry and I am ending up with consistent feedback, it's probably pretty accurate. So definitely look into finding that mentor that is going to give you some guidance specific for your career, your path, so then you're able to navigate well. For some of you, it is going to be taking a few courses here and there. For others, it might be a lengthier program. So it's so very important to find out now what that next step is going to be. And again, there are so many companies out there and organizations for veterans and military spouses to help you identify exactly what it is that you're going to need moving forward. Whereas this is more of a generalized environment where we're talking about different types of remote opportunities. And they definitely want you to have that personalized experience where you're able to identify for you what's going to work best. Because remote working is so amazing, it doesn't always work for everyone. So we do have to look at what is going to be and what is going to be best for you and what is best for your current circumstance and perhaps what is best for that circumstance a few years down the road as well. Obviously, we've learned this year that sometimes we can make a plan and we'll have to modify. I'm a firm believer that veterans and military spouses are probably doing a little bit better this year than civilians because it's something else. We'll figure out how to survive. But when it comes to articulating all of those soft skills and hard skills on paper, and again, there's companies out there that will help. In fact, Hire Heroes USA will write the civilian resume for veterans and for military spouses, so you don't have to do it by yourself. It's incredibly difficult to say great and wonderful things about yourself, even if you are a certified resume writer like me. But I think it's helpful to know about some of those skills and traits, specifically when we're talking about resume styles or resume types. What types of, would you say, best practices would you recommend when it comes to preparing a resume specifically for a virtual or a remote opportunity?
I think one thing that Kristen had said about resumes it's very common to see gaps of times in resumes as far as careers go with military spouses. We love to see personally when applicants are upfront about the time gaps and they tell us what they did accomplish during those times. Were they raising a family? Were they volunteering or working with their FRG? Were there courses like you mentioned or certifications that they received? We really like to see them being upfront, be proud of your accomplishments, pretty much, sell yourself. It doesn't have to be a career accomplishment on those resumes.
I love that you say that because it's So interesting. We're always doing something. What were you doing? What were you working towards? For me, again, I'm a military spouse. I am a mom. I've always done volunteering. I've always done schoolwork. I've always done, training here and there because I need to keep busy. And those are great things to fall back on when you're articulating during that time, here's what I did. And I know that it's a little bit difficult to talk about during an interview. However, we're moving into more modern times where transparency is key. Is it always going to work out with every employer? Perhaps not. If an employer is discriminating against you because you have a family, that's something that you really want to be mindful of. Is that a company that you want to work for? And later on, we'll talk about some scams as well, because I know several of you have added, how can I find out about a company that's scamming or the right company for me? So we'll talk about that in a moment, but I think it's so very helpful. Transparency is something that I've seen as a trend, even when it comes to salary. And that's something that for myself feels a little odd, because historically it's more of, okay, who's going to say it first? And it's more of a game. But I am seeing a lot of employers saying, in that first screening call, we'll bring up salary because we want to know if this is the right role for them and if they're the right person for the role before we invest more time. And that's very different than trends in these times. So the transparency is absolutely going to be key. Having gaps on your resume, again, what were you doing during that time? Were you volunteering? Were you working on yourself? Were you taking care of your family? And now that you've done that amazing task, you're able to focus on the next monumental accomplishment that you're going to attain. Erin, let's. That last part cut out. You and your perspective.
So it kind of really flows well into one of our core values, which is we take ownership. And it's really that kind of transparency key. So, if you took time off, or like maybe you're coming up on a PCS, I think that's one of the biggest things that we've seen recently, where people or candidates are like, I can't really consider this opportunity just yet. We're about to PCS, those kind of things. But that's what we're here for, especially at Instant Teams. We kind of help communicate that process to our customers because they know anybody they're working with is military focused. So just being transparent, we're there to help every step of the way. And you hit it so great, Ashley, and that's just where we want the opportunity to be long-term for both our candidates and our customers. So the more that you kind of open up and are honest about what you're looking for, the better the match for you and then also our customers. And that's what really makes successful workshops. But kind of backtrack into like the resume portion too, is we're a little untraditional in that sense. So we have our profile that's kind of set up as a resume, and it helps walk our candidates through it, and it kind of eliminates that possibility of any gaps being present, or maybe even like age discrimination. I know a lot of veterans kind of talk about that sometimes as well. And we focus mostly on your skills, and that technical skills, and then an area for soft skills. So our profiles kind of help kind of bridge that gap and really help and benefit in getting you connected with remote opportunities that way.
Great. That's good to know. And I know that there are a lot of systems where they'll have you apply as well as submit your resume. The resume is a great first glance. It allows you to add all of your accolades. It allows you to talk about not only what you did, but how you did it and why it was so important. But at the same time, you may also apply well. And so that's where, again, what we want to do is to focus on your skills and your abilities and what you did, and then take the focus off of that timeline. And Hire Heroes USA is one company that can help you with that in terms of the layout. You come to us with your skills and your great abilities, and we'll work with you on how to phrase, how to translate, and how to format that particular product. So Kristen, I'd love to hear your perspective as well.
Absolutely focusing on skills and what you can do. So, I think the traditional old school resume just kind of had education first. And, what I'm looking for is, what do you know how to do? What results have you produced? It's always really good to see, a focus on here was the role that I played, but here's what I actually accomplished in that role. hard skills and soft skills, you mentioned both. The other thing that I think I look for is any indicator that somebody has some experience with remote work specifically, because we do everything 100% virtually. That's a focus. I think most employers for virtual positions would like to see, hopefully, some there's either experience there's a good possibility that this person would be a good fit. And what I mean by that is to showcase your ability to meet deadlines or to manage your time well yourself. One of the, working remotely, especially with a very flexible job, most of our projects are very, very flexible as long as you meet deadlines. It's a double-edged sword because obviously, it's great to be able to kind of police yourself and manage your own time and fit things in where they work for you. But obviously the drawback is that you do have to get things accomplished on time, and that's a unique skill that some people who have had traditional employment haven't experienced yet. So anything that you can do to highlight, even if it's a volunteer opportunity that you took on, or anything that showcases something that you did either remotely or where you were in charge of managing your time and making a schedule. Online education is a good example. I teach online classes. Some of my students are expert time managers, and some of them are, really need a traditional classroom because they don't do that very well. So if you've taken courses, maybe highlight that fact. Anything that shows that you are able to kind of police yourself, I think is super helpful too.
I agree. And, even it feels way back when, but at the beginning, when I started working in veteran and military spouse employment services, it was done while going to school. And I served in that capacity as a somewhat remote volunteer. And most, when they're going to school, don't necessarily say that, I want to grow up to write resumes for other people. I want to grow up to help other people find employment. But it was something that I stumbled upon and really loved. And it was honestly due to that volunteer opportunity while I was attending school. So sometimes it is a balance of figuring out how to get your foot in the door. And part of the volunteer opportunity that I pursued in particular was becoming a Facebook administrator. That was one of the volunteer opportunities I held. And so again, it gives you that experience working remotely, but also working in that digital arena, specifically company, not personal Facebook use. We're talking about, company-wide Facebook use, which holds very different trends. So I think it's important to think outside of the box as well. What are some of those things you could be doing right now, or perhaps you're already doing but don't realize are marketable skills that you can put on that resume or bring up as talking points during an interview. The interview is going to be that next big hurdle after you have that resume set up and it's perfect and it looks and sounds amazing. Now all the interviews are moving to a virtual capacity for remote opportunities, but even for non-remote opportunities, I'm seeing that as a trend, at least this year. And so I'd love to spend a little bit of time talking about some of those virtual interviews, and then we'll go ahead and move to comments from the audience. When it comes to virtual interviews, because they are different, what are items or what are best practices that you would recommend to help prepare for those virtual interviews?
The first thing I would say is obviously remotely there might be different time zones involved, so you really want to pay attention to time zones and know the conversion there. One of the things one of our success coaches, Devis, always says is wear pants. That might sound like very basic advice, but when you are dressing for the part, you are really getting into that mindset of crushing your workday or crushing this interview. And we've all seen those videos circulating on the internet of people getting up or not muting or turning off their video, and let's just say they're not prepared for the day. So don't be that person. Wear pants. Just really good communication style, body language. Obviously, it's a little bit trickier when you're not in the same room with the person, but just be very engaging, very clear communication styles. I think that's pretty much it.
I love it. Definitely wear pants. In fact, I was in a video interview when I was applying to be a Department of Labor facilitator, and I was sitting for most of the interview, and the interviewee or interviewer asked me as the interviewee to stand up and take a few steps back so I could facilitate. I was wearing pants, so it was a good interview. However, certainly be mindful what you're going to wear is definitely going to make you feel different. And of course, it's how people perceive you. So not only what you wear, but what's in your environment as well. So that's a great point. Erin.
So we usually joke to dress professionally from top up, but that's also because we use a combination for our interviewing in our process. That we use an asynchronous / self-guided interview during the first part of our process, and then we use a live Zoom interview part as well. So with each set of that, it comes kind of different guides and best practices. But overall, it's always just practice, 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 and test, test, test. So if you're doing a self-guided interview, go ahead, just hop on your phone or your camera like we're doing today, and just kind of practice answering those questions and self-recorded, and become familiar with seeing yourself speak, because we know that's all kind of we're self-critical and it's always a little weird, your voice. But some companies might use that. So just become familiar and comfortable with filming yourself and answering certain questions, and you might not have that ability to bounce off somebody else. So just be prepared for that. And then when we do our live ones, and that's really just whatever platform you're using. For us, we use Zoom. Test that. Make sure everything is working and ready to go for you. Make sure you're communicating with that person interviewing you too, just in case maybe you're running a little late or something. Just it's a little different than in person. So just be upfront, let them know what's going on, and practice, practice, and test.
Right, absolutely. And if you are using a program like Zoom, you are able to practice with a friend or a colleague before the event to verify that your camera, your speakers are all working. You do need to stare at the camera rather than the screen, and that can be very confusing because naturally we want to stare at the person's eyes or the person's face rather than the camera. And then, of course, looking at software updates to verify that that's working. So there are a few things to prepare for that's a little bit different than that in-person interview where you don't have to worry about the environment at all. You definitely have to consider what could go wrong and what possibly might go wrong, and really try to be prepared. So again, I'm doing those test runs, conducting videos. Someone said bandwidth, absolutely. Those are all great, great tools because it's something that we do need to be mindful of. So then you can focus on your skills and abilities without getting bogged down with worrying about sound. And Kristen.
Actually, I'm really going to echo what the others said here. So my first piece of advice is always practice. And if you can, get access to the tools that you'll be using, that's a great thing. We do all of our interviews in person through Zoom. So Zoom is I think it's interesting. A month ago, nobody else really knew how to use Zoom. And all of a sudden, everybody uses it. So it's actually gotten a lot easier, I think, for people because most people have been exposed to it now. I know my kids' teachers were trying to figure out how to use Zoom, and I helped them a little bit because I've been using it with teaching and with interviewing forever. But if you can get through, obviously that's super helpful. I love the idea. I think somebody said, practice in front of a mirror, record yourself, practice with a friend. So those are all really great pieces of advice. I try to make it as much like a regular conversation, like an in-person conversation as I can. That can be awkward, especially if you haven't done a whole lot of it. The other thing that I would recommend is that you should try, if you can, to limit the number of distractions that are going to happen, and you should expect that you will have distractions because it happens a lot. And how you respond to that kind of, background stuff it says a lot. So if you can kind of keep your cool and the doorbell's ringing, a dog is barking, you have a kid run behind you with no pants on. Those things happen sometimes, and it can be really embarrassing, but it can also be a way to just be human. Not ideal, obviously, but I would say the best interview experiences that I have are with people who are able to kind of handle whatever it is that comes up in the background. And I always kind of play, it happens at my house too, even though I know I'm going to be doing this. My kids aren't usually home, and they are right now, just like everybody else's are. So had a couple almost near misses with distractions today even. But, that's the kind of thing where we all want to be as professional as we can, but sometimes reality is that if you are doing a video interview, you may be in your house. There may be no way around that. And so if things come up, then just roll with it.
I think that's great, being human. That's something that we're all experiencing right now to our cores. And preparing for these interviews is really going to be a great way to prepare for working remotely or working virtually, because some of you may be working for fully remote, where you work in your homes completely. Some are looking at maybe telecommute, where part of it's on site, part of it's at home. And then some of you might be looking at remote, where you travel to the work site, but in theory, your office is still at home. So there's a variety of ways that you can work remotely, but it's important to think about how are you going to set up that space, not only for the interview, but post-interview as well. What are some of the things you have to be mindful of, whether it's cats or dogs or the doorbell and so forth. For me, one of my snafus is we have Amazon Alexas in all of our rooms. And sometimes my husband will play music because he also works from home, which is a lot of fun. And sometimes it'll play on my Amazon Alexa as well. So unplugging that before any significant meetings and or interviews is something that I learned the hard way. But again, how you react is simply, I'm human, let me go ahead and take care of that, and then come back cool, calm, and collected if and when possible. So I know that we've talked about a lot. I do want to open up the floor, ask us anything, so you can go ahead and use that chat box. I am going to go back to a comment that I saw earlier a few times about how do you identify scams working remotely, because sadly we've all seen them. Is there anything that you can recommend, any specific websites you've heard of where you can verify the validity of that particular opportunity?
Erin, do you want to go first on this one? Take the lead.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go. So I see it often, and that's going back to the company's website just to see if that opening is actually there. That's always kind of the first thing when I personally was searching for remote work, just to make sure that it was a legitimate opportunity. You can also leave like a point of contact, search for that person, make sure they are part of that organization. And then my background is in English, so I'm kind of always a stickler on this and always looking for it. If there's a position announcement or maybe an email that you received of an opportunity, check out the grammar, because more than likely, we're all human with mistakes, but you'll see through that announcement or that email just tons of red flags traditionally. And then the last piece is being pay rate. A lot of the time you'll see scammers come in and say, hey, take this data entry job. You only have to work 10 hours a week, but you're going to get $50,000 that year. More than likely that's not going to add up, and that's not real. So just using common sense and then just keeping kind of an eye out for those red flags traditionally will be best practices in determining if it's a scam or if it's a legitimate opportunity.
I agree. There are some common themes, particularly if it says come work in a fun environment and make $4,000 in a week with working 5 hours a week. There are going to be some trends. I did add a website there, snopes.com. Sometimes you can Google, sometimes you can backtrack as well. And then of course, always go to the company website. Look at the company website, and you are going to be able to identify what type of company it is according to how they have things constructed on that website. If there is a website, who that person is going to be if they are on that posting, and more often than not you can track them down and find them, or at least find them on LinkedIn, so you can do a bit of recon. Kristen, do you have anything to add?
I would have said red flags as well, and definitely I always use LinkedIn if I'm trying to find someone. The other thing that I think, especially in the military community, can be very helpful is just networking with people. More often than not, if you have some social media groups that you are a part of, might be able to ask some questions and find out from other people if they are aware of the company or the listing. They might have some kind of feedback and advice for you. It always makes me feel better if I see somebody kind of from my own circle or community who has been involved. That definitely is a help too.
Perfect. And I did see a couple of comments here that popped up as we're preparing to close out. It looks like a few of you have security clearances as well. There are a lot of websites out there, clearancejobs.com. I think I saw Flex Jobs on there earlier that can help you navigate to some of these employers. But we definitely need to keep in mind that looking at some of the outside of the box opportunities, networking, and so forth can be helpful. So with that being said, I want to hand it back to Elvis to close out the event. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Emily, Erin, and Christine. I appreciate all of you, your time and your insights this afternoon. I just want to remind everybody that this session is being recorded and it will be posted on IBM YouTube page and for your viewing. If you know somebody that has missed this session that will benefit from it, please feel free to share it with them. But also just to remind you all that we do host these VetNet webinars at least twice a month. So make sure you join us for our next ones. And thank you all very much for being with us, and stay safe and healthy and have a great rest of the week.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.